All right, this is me on the screen. I'm here really to talk about, wow, this light is incredible. I'm here really to talk about how we can help this whole marketplace, the blockchain, the cryptocurrencies, the marketplace grow faster and better with regulation. And I know it has not been the topic that most people were interested in the past, but since the last few months, with enforcements from the Security Exchange Commission, there's been a lot of interest. So what I'm going to talk about myself, the reason I'm here, I'm from the video game industry. I started at Activision. I also was the CEO of Acclaim Games. And my game background really got me in touch with what this whole cryptocurrency was, about having different types of coins, different kinds of currencies, and economies. Anyway, so if you look at the history of the ICOs, and you'll see right now that it kind of progressed to where T0 made what we call a regulated ICO. It's an ICO that uses regulations. And at the beginning, you have Ethereum. They did an ICO that was basically a utility coin. And right now, I think the thinking out there is that the utility coin ICO is just not going to work as an investment. It works if you give away the coins to people and the tokens, that's fine. So why regulations matter? Well, it turns out that the whole financial industry in this country is an enormous industry. It's in the top three, healthcare, finance, enormous, and it's protected by rules and laws that were created since 1933. They're enforced by the Security Exchange Commission and every state. And to make things even more complicated, every country has their own set of rules, and they also defend them. And the main reason regulation exists is to protect the investor, allowing them to make an informed decision. So this is a lot of text, but basically what happened is in April 2012, Obama signed the Jobs Act. And at that point, no one knew about Bitcoin. The whole idea of cryptocurrency was not known to most people, just the very few. And the Jobs Act, really what it did, it changed the way you can raise money for companies. For the last 80 years, an ordinary person, a consumer, could not invest in a company. So if your neighbor started Uber or started PayPal, you can't invest. And that was kind of the way things were. You had to be an accredited, wealthy investor. And with the Jobs Act, it all changed. And that's something that is an incredible event for the ICO and the blockchain industry, because before the Jobs Act, you couldn't go and sell those tokens to ordinary people. So just to go through it, you will hear a lot of buzzwords when you invest in an ICO nowadays. Regulation D, 506C is a buzzword, but really what it says is you can offer to the general public, not to accredited investors, but you can make a public solicitation of your offering. And the same thing with the ICO's Reg S. That's for international. So before the ICO 1.0, which is what most of the blockchain companies used, is they were using the utility coins. And the ICO 2.0, which is really where things are going to be going, is using the Jobs Act to basically sell those tokens in a regulated way, which in many ways will give you information as investors. If you look at the public offerings, so Obama is signing here the Jobs Act. The first company to use it was Elio Motors. They raised $17 million for a car. And since then, about $1 billion have been raised, which is so much less than the blockchain industry. But it's $1 billion versus the $8 billion the blockchain industry has raised in the last 12 months. But it's done, the $1 billion has been done as securities. So a 2.0 is basically taking what I just discussed, the Jobs Act, and putting it on the blockchain. So how it works is you have different kinds of agreements. A lot of people are talking about the SAFT, which is a simple agreement for future token, which is running into some issues right now because of the way it's structured. But you have things like date, the rate. These are structures that allow you to take a token and make it an equity token and also sell it as a utility token. I'm going to go through it a little bit. This tells you a little bit how things work. So if you have a Regulation A+, for those who may not know it, you can raise up to 50 million from the general public, and when you sell those tokens to the general public as a security, they can trade it right away. There's no delay. But if you use Regulation D, which is accredited investors, or Regulation S, you have to wait 1 year. And then if you go and there are companies like Gab, for example, they're doing a Regulation A+, and T0, for those who may know the company, they've raised money under Regulation D. Now, the biggest issue that is facing the tokens as securities is how do you trade them? It turns out most of the exchanges that exist today, whether it's GDAX or Bittrex or all of the ones around the country or abroad, will not take a token that is a security and put it on an exchange, because they realize that at that point they're trading securities. So the biggest issue is how do you trade it? Well, it turns out there's a regulation that actually helps do that, and it's called ATS. So it's not a regulation, it's actually a designation. So if you're a broker-dealer, which about 3,000 of them exist in this country, and you build an ATS, you will be able to trade those tokens, security tokens. And that, today, the companies who have announced they're going to do it is T0, another company called Templum, our company Start Engine, and there's many more that are going to come out. So for those who are concerned about when you issue the tokens as securities, where will your investors trade them? It will happen. In the next 6 to 9 months, you'll see a lot of new companies come out. And the good news is that when these companies, they're broker-dealers, they're fully regulated, and they can make sure that your tokens, when they're traded, are done in a compliant manner. Okay. If you want to learn more about that, we have a summit called the Start Engine Summit that comes up in April 20th in Los Angeles. It's going to be fully streamed, so you'll be able to see it right on your Facebook or your YouTube. And what it's going to give you is a little bit more details about how to raise money with an ICO. So that's it. I guess we don't have time for questions, but I want to thank you for listening.